Today we are going to be finding the area of circles. We have previously talked about finding the circumference, which is the perimeter around a circle, but today we're going to be finding the area, which is the space inside of the circle. There are a few things I want to cover first. One is I want to remind you about exponents, because the formula for the area of circles is pi The formula for finding the area of the circle is pi times radius squared. So pi we used in finding the perimeter, but it's times radius squared. Radius squared is the exponent for radius times radius. So if we break this down, we can break it down to pi times radius times radius. This is different than pi times 2 times radius. We will talk about that a little bit later, but let's see if we can practice a few of these. Let's look at example number 1. It says to determine the area of a circle, use 3.14 for pi, but I think we're going to go ahead and just use 3. There may be some circumstances where we may want to use 3.14, but we'll talk about that in more length when we have multiple choice questions. So we wrote earlier that the formula is pi times radius squared, which is radius times radius. We're going to use 3 for pi. The radius, remember, is half the circle, half the distance. So we're going to do 3 times 5 times 5. Now, I'm going to do 5 times 5 first. So we have 3 times 25. And we know that 3 times 25 is 75, and it's inches squared. We do say that it's inches squared because the area inside of a circle, it is two-dimensional. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 tells you it has a radius of 14. So if we have the area of a circle is pi times radius times radius, this will be 3 times 14 times 14, and I will do 14 times 14 first. Which is 196. So we have 3 times 196, which is approximately 588 centimeters squared. Do we have any questions at this time? Let's take a look at number 3 and 4. These are a little bit different. Number 3 says to determine the area of a semicircle, use 3.14. But like I said, I think we're going to go ahead and use 3 instead of 3.14 to find the area of the semicircle. And a semicircle is a half of a circle. So we're still going to use pi times radius, but we're going to divide it by 2 at the end so that we can get half the circle. Now, they gave us the diameter, the distance all the way across. So we need to make sure we find the radius, which is half the distance. And half of 18 is 9. Very good. So now we're going to use pi. And remember, we said we were going to use 3. So I have 3 times 9 times 9 divided by 2. I'm going to do 9 times 9 first. So 3 times 81 divided by 2. And 3 times 81, I get 243. And remember, it's half the circle, so we're going to divide it by 2 and get 121.5 millimeters squared. Do we have any questions finding the area of a semicircle, or better known as a half circle? Let's take a look at number 4. Number 4 says to determine the area of a quarter circle. So what do we think we're going to be dividing this one by? That's it. We're going to divide it by 4. We're going to use the same formula with pi times radius, but now we're going to divide it by 4. A good way to remember this is that there are 4 quarters in $1, so you'll be dividing by 4. They give us the radius of 5, so I'm going to do 3 times 5 times 5 divided by 4. That's 3 times 25 divided by 4. And I'm going to go over here. So now we have 75 divided by 4. Which is 18.75. We will use the inches squared. Are there any other questions about finding the area of a circle, a half circle, or a quarter of a circle? Sometimes they will ask you about a specific type of circle inside of a word problem, similar to number 5 here on our notes. On a basketball court, there is a semicircle above the free throw line. Now, a semicircle means we're going to be doing what? That is correct. We will divide by 2. It also tells us it has a radius of 6 feet. We're going to go ahead and use 3 instead of 3.14. So let's go ahead and set that one up. The same formula for the area of a circle, which is pi times radius, but we are going to be dividing by 2 because it is a semicircle. So now we have pi is 3, the radius is 6, and divide that by 2. So now we have 3 times 36 divided by 2. And we have 108 divided by 2, which will give us 54. So the area of the semicircle at the free throw line is 54 feet squared. Does anyone have any questions before we continue on the back and work some of these problems together? To make sure that we get plenty of practice, what I have done is I've gone ahead and given you a few circles that we are going to find the area of. You have the area of a whole circle, the area of a semicircle, and the area of a quarter circle. The whole circle, all we're going to be doing is pi times radius times radius. The semicircle will be the same pi times radius, but then we'll be dividing by 2 because it is a half circle. And how about the quarter circle? We will be dividing it by 4. Very good. Could I get a volunteer to come find the area of the whole circle for the first one, the half circle for the first one, and the quarter circle for the first one? Take a moment to make sure that you have the work shown in your notes. Now, let's get a volunteer to do the next one with a radius of 6 centimeters. Take a moment to make sure that you have all the work for the circle with a radius of 6 centimeters. Let's see if we can get a volunteer or two to find the area of the circle with a 70 millimeter diameter, a half circle, and the quarter circle. Let's get a volunteer to come find the area of a circle with a diameter of 8, the half circle, and the quarter circle. Very good. Take a moment to make sure that you have the work and the solutions on your notes. In the meantime, let's get a volunteer to try to work out the very last one. I do want to make sure that we pay attention to the diameter for the center circle is not complete, so we need to move this little arrow on the edge of it to both sides. So let's take a look. If the gray area is 2 centimeters wide, then we need to make sure that this is noted as 2 centimeters and the one on the left is noted as 2 centimeters. So now if you notice, we have an entire diameter that is not 8 centimeters, but it is 12 centimeters. We will be using this number to determine the area of the larger circle. Very good work. Do you have any questions on determining the area of a circle, a semicircle, or a quarter circle? I do want to note that there is a chance that they will end up asking you to find the area of a 3/4 circle. So if they give you a 3/4 circle, then you still divide it by 4, but then you can multiply it by 3. So for example, this one here, we divided it by 4, so we know that a 1/4 equals 27, but 3/4 would just be multiplied by 3. So 27 times 3 would give us 81. You do want to make sure that you are paying attention to the details in the problems to make sure you are getting all the steps in. If there are no further questions, you may now begin working on your homework.